They danced until their feet bled. They danced until their feet split open. They danced while their friends dropped dead beside them. And no one, not even the priests, could make them stop. In 1518, the city of Strasbourg was struck by a plague, not of fever, not of blood, but of dance. For weeks, hundreds of people moved to a rhythm no one could hear until exhaustion, madness, and death claimed them. Was it poison, mass hysteria, or something supernatural that seized an entire city? This is the dancing plague of 1518, the epidemic that made people dance to death. Europe in the early 1500s was a continent on edge. The Black Death had just ravaged its towns. Famine and disease haunted every street. And in Strasbourg, a bustling city on the Rhine, people lived in constant fear of divine punishment. Every drought, every sickness was seen as a sign of God's anger. So when the dancing began, many believed it wasn't a sickness at all, but a warning from above. On the 14th of July, 1518, a woman named Frau Trophäa stepped into the streets of Strasbourg and began to dance fervently and uncontrollably. No music to sway to, no laughter, no reason, just joyless, agonizing dance. Her movements were wild, desperate, and as if her body were no longer her own. According to Ned Pennant Ream,
Frau Trophäa had started dancing on July 14th on the narrow cobbled street outside her half-timbered home. Some of those who had witnessed her strange performance had begun to mimic her, and within days, more than 30 choreomaniacs were in motion, some so monomaniacally that only death would have the power to intervene.
Trophäa kept up the constant dancing for a full week. Soon 36 others joined in. By August, the dancing plague had claimed 400 victims. The streets of Strasbourg became a living nightmare. Men, women, even children moved as though possessed. The victims' movements were spasmodic with many convulsions. Their arms would thrash violently, and their eyes were vacant and expressionless. They danced until their feet were raw, with blood pooling into and soaking their shoes. Often there would also be cries for help from the afflicted, but no one knew how to help. Eventually, many began to collapse from extreme exhaustion, hunger, and thirst, or sometimes from a stroke or heart attack. Doctors were powerless. The priests were terrified. Bodies piled in the streets. At its terrifying peak, there were as many as 15 deaths per day. But the final number of fatalities is unknown today. The authorities called in physicians. Their diagnosis? Too much hot blood. Their prescription? They recommended more dancing. They believed the body had to dance it out, so a stage was built. Musicians were hired, and the music blared across the square as hundreds of people flailed under the sun. But instead of healing, the frenzy spread faster. The city echoed with drums, flutes, and screams. When doctors failed, the church stepped in. They declared it the curse of Saint Vitus, the patron saint of dance and epilepsy. The afflicted were taken to his shrine. Priests placed red shoes on their feet, symbols of divine protection. They prayed. They wept. They begged for mercy. Slowly, by early September, the dancing began to subside, but the city was left scarred and confused. What had they just witnessed? What had started this madness? For 5 centuries, scholars have wrestled with the horror of 1518. What force possessed an entire city? The truth likely lies in a dark confluence of science, psychology, and faith. Our first line of inquiry targets the very food they ate. Many historians propose that the dancers were, in fact, victims of a chemical poisoning. The culprit? Ergot, a nasty fungus that thrives on damp rye grain, a staple of the common person's bread. Ergot is a natural source of compounds structurally similar to LSD. Ingesting this could flood the nervous system, inducing vivid hallucinations, violent convulsions, and extreme muscle spasms. Imagine hundreds of starving villagers unknowingly consuming this neurotoxin, their minds unraveling, their bodies twitching, a collective, agonizing fit mistaken for an unstoppable dance. However, this theory stumbles when examined closely. Egotism usually leads to spasms and rapid tissue death, not the sustained, week-long rhythmic movements observed in Strasbourg. If it wasn't poison, the cause must lie deeper within the human mind itself. The most compelling modern explanation is mass psychogenic illness, what we commonly call mass hysteria. Europe in the 1500s was a psychological powder keg. People were emotionally shattered by years of plague, famine, and the crushing religious fear of divine wrath. Frau Trophea's solitary, frantic movements may not have been a sickness, but a nervous breakdown, a visible manifestation of overwhelming stress. In a state of profound collective despair, this behavior became contagious. The sheer terror and belief in a curse provided the mental framework. When the body has no voice for suffering, it finds a movement. One by one, people now joined in, their minds forcing their bodies into a dance that expressed the pain their words could not. It was a shared delusion, a collective psychological fugue state where fear became rhythm, and the body acted out the suffering of the soul. Our final theory turns away from science and focuses on the landscape of 16th century faith. For the people of Strasbourg, belief was law. They didn't see an illness. They saw divine punishment. Specifically, they believed they were cursed by Saint Vitus, who was believed to both heal and afflict through uncontrollable movement. In this context, the cure wasn't rest. It was expiation. The only way to appease the angry saint was to complete the dance, to literally dance themselves free of the sin they believed had caused the curse. The intense, shared conviction that they were afflicted, combined with the psychological pressure of the era, merged into a powerful self-fulfilling prophecy. Belief itself became the infectious agent. The dancing plague of 1518 remains one of history's strangest events. No single theory explains it completely. Maybe it was poison, maybe hysteria, maybe faith, or maybe it was all three, woven together in one dark summer of fear. But what it truly revealed was the power of human belief. How easily emotion can spread and how deeply the mind can deceive the body. Even now, hysteria takes new forms, viral trends, social panics, online frenzies. We may not dance ourselves to death, but we still move to unseen rhythms. 500 years later, the stones of Strasbourg still remember. No demon was ever found, no cure discovered, only the echoes of hundreds of souls moving to a music no one could hear. The dancing plague of 1518. A story that reminds us that sometimes the greatest plagues begin in the mind. So what do you think happened in Strasbourg that summer? Was it poison, mass hysteria, or something supernatural? Tell us your theory in the comments. And if you love stories that blur the line between fact and the impossible, subscribe to Mystery Lane. Because sometimes the truth is stranger than history itself.